Hello everyone, today we're taking a look at Salt and Sanctuary by Ska Studios. This has been described by many as a 2D Dark Souls, and, well, I believe that is, pretty much correct. And, there's also a bit more to it than that, however, but let's just start at the beginning. This is the first of... oh my goodness. The first of Ska Studios games to actually make its way to PC due to exclusivity deals and things, I believe. And if this is anything to go by, since this is the first one of their games that I've actually played, I am hugely excited for more of their games to eventually make their way to this platform, because my goodness do they know what they're doing when it comes to making 2D brawler-esque action RPGs and things of that nature. So I'm currently just kind of running through some earlier game areas and farming and stuff like that, because this character is at the end of the game, and I don't want to just like beat the game on screen for people in like a first impressions video, because that would be kind of weird. But let's just start with what Salt and Sanctuary is. It is a 2D action RPG in the vein of games like Dark Souls, only turned into a 2D kind of bend, and also it has a lot of elements of Metroidvania games, and because that's kind of an older term nowadays, and a lot of people don't actually know exactly what that means, Metroidvania is referring to the Igafune, as in the creator, era of Castlevania games, starting with Castlevania Symphony of the Night, moving onwards. Not counting the Lords of Shadow games. Although they do have some elements of that in them, to be fair. And those are games that take cues from Metroid, as well as combining their Castlevania-esque nature. They are hugely based on exploration, and you'll often come across areas that you can't actually access yet, and you need various movement-based abilities, things like wall jumping or double jump, or some sort of object that lets you open the green door or the blue wall, and things like that to actually move on. And you'll often come across various areas of the places you're in that you'll be able to come back to later to actually progress farther in a previous area than you could the first time you were there, and things like that. These are all very common tropes in Metroidvania games. And this game very much takes cues from that, as well as Dark Souls, as Soulsborne games. And it does them both fantastically well, interestingly enough, which is different than what you may consider for a 2D game. Now, first of all, let's talk about the combat. So the combat is a combination of a lot of the 2D hack and slash of Metroidvania games, with a lot of the interesting equipment variety and weightiness and deliberate, slow, methodical movement and things of Soulsborne games. You'll notice that the weapon I'm using right now is a very large sword. And this is not just a large sword, it is also a big old pair of shears. This is called a great scissor. And it's just something to show you some of the more interesting equipment variety in this game, that there's a huge amount of really neat stuff. And you can say I also have this staff, which has 2 different spells equipped on it that I can use when I'm not getting murdered by these wretch feeders. I have a barrage of fire and a short-range but highly potent ball of explosive lightning. Like that. Boop! And, there's a ridiculously large amount of equipment variety in this game, and as you would expect from a Dark Souls game, but not necessarily from a brawler of sorts. This does absolutely have that, though, and that's good to me. Damn, I think that killed me, didn't it? Oh no, close, but not quite. So the game is such a heady combination. It's so interesting to me. Alright, so a little history on me, I guess. Symphony of the Night, Dawn of Sorrow, and Order of Ecclesia, 3 Castlevania games, are some of my absolute favorite games that I've ever played, and they are very much in the Metroidvania style. I was meant to turn around there, I didn't quite do it. Enemies with grab attacks in this game, by the way, are the most annoying things in the universe. These are no exception, even though I'm massively overleveled for this area. And, also, as a lot of you that watch this channel probably know, Dark Souls is one of my other absolute favorite game series. So to see those 2 loves of mine have some sort of weird night of drunken loving and come up with this game is actually really amazing to me, because I've not really seen a combination of those two things like this before. There aren't a lot of other companies that have tried a Dark Souls-esque game. I think one of the only ones I can think of in recent memory is Lords of the Fallen, which had its own problems, although I would say it was actually a fairly underrated game by a lot of people, just because the YouTube Dark Souls community is fairly elitist a lot of times and hates the fact that anyone would dare touch their precious Miyazaki's baby, which is a little bit of cognitive dissonance in my opinion, because if you like the game so much, why wouldn't you want other people trying to emulate it? But Lords of the Fallen had its own problems and definitely maybe tried a little too hard. This game does not. This passes the test, in my opinion, and the test is for games that are heavily based on other games but aren't part of the series, games that are kind of like for fans of, as some might say. The test is there enough in this game, is there enough to the game, that people that aren't actually fans of that series, that maybe haven't even played that series, could still enjoy it on its own merits? Does it hold up on its own? And in my opinion, Salt and Sanctuary absolutely does. It is a phenomenally made 2D action RPG. It has its own problems. It comes warts and all with games like Dark Souls. You know how there are certain areas, cough cough, Shrine of Amana, cough, and certain Dark Souls games that are less good than others. Certain bosses in Dark Souls games, cough cough, Bed of Chaos, that are a lot worse than others. And not every part of those games is absolutely phenomenally enjoyable, but generally speaking, you will have a lot more enjoyment. I'm farming for a specific item to show you something, but I might not get it. I might just have to show you anyway. By the way, just so you know why I'm repeating this, you'll get more enjoyment than frustration out of those games, generally speaking. And I feel the exact same way with this game. I'm going to run through this a couple more times. And I have had some frustrating moments in this game. There are some bosses, like, say, the Tree of Men, that were really cool boss designs, but I feel were a very needlessly frustrating boss fight. Things like that, and that's, not exclusive to this game at all. That's not a problem that only this game has, but I just want to say that, I'm not trying to tell you that this game is perfect. But what is here is a very, very good combination of two of my absolute favorite things. So the gameplay is pretty familiar to those of you who are at home with Souls games. You'll find a large amount of combat variety because of the equipment that you have access to, and I'll show you some more equipment in my inventory in just a moment. You'll also notice that there are even some kind of Metroidvania slash... Damn. Alright, well that's annoying. Slash, almost spectacle fighter-y elements to how some of the combat works. Like, for instance, if you use a ranged attack or spell or like a pistol or crossbow or bow in midair, it actually makes you float in midair like that. That's something that, is kind of a spectacle fighter-ish kind of thing. Oh, I was hoping to jump out of the way before it killed me. Damn. I absolutely hate enemies with grab attacks in this game. I am way over-leveled for this area and still dying. I should be ashamed of myself. And there are some movesets for certain pieces of equipment that are very, very acrobatic. Things like the spear and the poleaxe, halberd-style weapons that have a lot of things that fling the enemies into the air, fling you into the air, things that can make you swing it all around in like a very fast kind of motion, meant to get a lot of quick combo hits in at once. Things that are kind of not very Dark Souls-ish, and are a lot more in the vein of things like spectacle fighters, which is cool. Again, another really interesting combination of weird genre mixes here. Man, these things just will not let up on me at all. It's very frustrating. Anyway, and I would say that what all is here in terms of the combat works very well. So let me just show you some of the other weapons in the game. You have your basic longswords. You've got wands and staves, which are used for casting magic. You've got daggers, katanas, scythes, whips, and whip swords, which are like snake swords. You've got the great scissor and great swords, axes, great axes, maces, hammers, great hammers, spears, pole axes. You even got some cool stuff like the flint racer here, the flint and steel, which is essentially a wheel lock or a flintlock equivalent to a gun blade, which is really cool, by the way. You actually equip it along with a bullet, and you swing it like a sword and fire it like a wheel lock or flintlock pistol, which is highly unique, I would say. It shows the personality of this game kind of shining through. The game has a lot of personality of its own. It is very dark and oppressive, like Dark Souls, but in its own way that doesn't feel like it's trying too hard to be Dark Souls. The lore is very interesting. These things just will not drop when I need them to drop. And the way the lore is presented is in a very Dark Souls-esque manner, as in, it's quite mysterious. You have to read item descriptions, you have to read the skill tree descriptions, actually, to get a lot of lore and things like that, but it's all there, and it's all very well written and interesting. I'm going to run through this one more time. And you'll also generally find that due to the nature of the equipment, the fact that there's so much of it, so many different kinds of spells, so many different kinds of weapons, that the character builds that you can actually make are just as varied and interesting as things you could make in something like Dark Souls, which, again, is not what you would necessarily expect from a 2D brawler. And this is very much not just a brawler, of course, but it is in that vein. So, let's talk about the leveling system. So, you'll notice in the bottom left there that you have two currencies. You have gold, which you use for mostly what you would expect is buying things from merchants. And you have salt, and salt is, as you've noticed, pretty much like souls. And that's interesting because in something like Dark Souls, the reason souls are actually so valuable as a currency is because they are your currency for everything. You use them for leveling up, for buying items, for upgrading items, for everything. In this case, salt is used for leveling up, and for upgrading weapons and armors, and for transmuting weapons and armors. And transmuting is your, kind of like how in Dark Souls when you use boss souls to make new weapons and things like that, that's this game's version of that system. So it is used for more than just leveling, salt is, but it is primarily used for leveling, and gold is used for most transactions, but you could say the most important ones, i.e. upgrading and transmuting, are still using salt, and sometimes a lot of it. Like the weapon I want to make right now is going to cost me 100,000 salt, which is a lot, and I do not have that. But yeah, so it is quite the thing, and you'll also have noticed that when you die, you lose your salt. And this works a little bit differently than Dark Souls. In Dark Souls, of course, you drop a bloodstain. In this case, your salt actually goes to the enemy that killed you. And if there wasn't an enemy that killed you, for instance, if you fell off of a cliff and died like an idiot, like I do all the time, it will instead generate an enemy called a salt bat, which actually kind of looks a little bit like that thing, that will try and kill you instead when you go back to where you died. And you have to kill whatever killed you to get your salt back. And the enemy that took your salt will actually have a bit of a health boost and will glow white to show that that's the one that you need to kill. So that's a little more unforgiving, I would say, than Dark Souls, because you don't only have to get back to where you died. One more time. I'm so bad at this. Getting this one last thing I need to show you is just awful. But you don't only need to get back to where you died, but you need to kill what killed you in the first place. And although they did change this for bosses, because that would technically mean that you would have to beat a boss like on your second try every time, or else lose all your salt, if they did it that way. So the way they do it on bosses instead is that if you die to a boss, its health does not get boosted like normal enemies do, thank goodness. And instead what will happen is you will get, you will get the ability to reduce its health past a certain point, indicated by these little arrows on its health gauge. They're usually about a quarter of the way down-ish or so, to actually get your salt back. You don't actually have to kill it the second time to get all your salt back. As long as you get its health down to that point, at least, before it kills you again, then you get your salt back and you can keep it and get another chance. Just like Dark Souls, dodge rolling is very important, and there is an equipment weight system, just like Dark Souls, that has, there's a stat governing it and everything, endurance, and if you go too far over your equipment encumbrance, I believe it's 75% of it in this game, then you will indeed fat roll, and you don't want to be doing that. So you gotta watch your equipment weight and everything, and there are other percentages that will give you different speeds of roll and different immunity frames to your roll, but also, unlike Dark Souls and very much like other... I still didn't drop it, damn. And very much like other games in this Metroidvania style genre, jumping is also important for dodging and boss fights and things, so that's something as well to consider. So, yeah, let me show you the leveling system. That actually gives me an excuse to run this one more time to get enough salt to level up. So, yeah, the way the leveling system works, let me explain while I'm doing this. I know this is a bit repetitive, but I just want to show you the leader system and the way that the creeds work. Anyway, so the way leveling works is not exactly like Dark Souls. When you get enough salt to level, you spend it at a sanctuary, one of these. This is basically like your bonfires, you've probably noticed. You go back here when you die, when you go here, all your health is restored. The healing items that you see up here, like this red grass, every creed has a different healing item that works a little bit differently, which again I'll explain in a minute. And all that, and you get, instead of putting your salt into a stat as a level, you actually get an item every time you level called a black pearl. And a black pearl is then put on a skill tree. So this has an interesting combination of Dark Souls-esque mechanics and Western RPG, action RPG mechanics like skill trees. The skill tree is very much like the Sphere Grid or the Path of Exile passive skill forest, in that it's a very large, rather imposing thing, but it's not complicated or difficult to navigate at all. Yeah, that's the last one I needed, thank goodness, oh my god. And what you'll notice when I level is that the tree is actually pretty huge, and I'll explain how all that works and how the requirement system works. So weapons and items in this game do not have, well, really just weapons, do not have stat requirements like in Dark Souls. So you don't need like 40 intelligence to equip this spell, or even though it's called magic in this game, or 25 strength to equip this weapon. You actually, there's no skill requirements. You actually need a, well, you may have noticed that in the inventory here, weapons have a class. This is a class 0 sword. This is a class 1 spear. This is a class 3 great scissors, also class 2 magic. Those classes are what determine whether you can wield something, and those are also on the skill tree. So instead of having a stat requirement, they have this class requirement, and those aren't classes in the traditional RPG sense. This isn't something you're stuck into when you choose at the beginning of the game. This is, again, very much like Dark Souls in that you choose, as you level, what you want to be. You're not stuck into something from the beginning or anything like that. That's enough salt. And, as you'll discover here, that can get pretty expensive, though, in terms of salt. So, if I go here and level up, here's how it works. I am now level 97. That gives me a black pearl to spend, and this is the Tree of Skill. So, as you can see, pretty impressively large, a lot of stuff on here. Yeah, a lot of stuff. So you'll notice that there are nodes that are stats, just like putting a level into a stat in Dark Souls. So you have will, willpower, got dexterity, strength, endurance, magic, wisdom. They're all very much like what you would expect, except magic is intelligence and wisdom is faith. All the others work exactly like you would expect, and there is even strength and dexterity scaling on weapons that works exactly like you would think it does if you're a Dark Souls player. And each of these nodes, by the way, a lot of people don't seem to realize this, you can actually put up to 5 pearls, up to 5 points, levels worth, into each of these. So, say if you're looking for equipment load, so you want to find these endurance nodes, you don't have to continually just put one into this and say, okay, I need another level, and then another level, and then another one, and then, oh, there's another one. So I can get up to here and get another one. You don't have to do it that way. You can put up to 5 levels into each of these nodes. So that means that going from node to node is actually for progressing through the tree to get to the class-based stuff and things like that, more than just, you know, if I wanted a whole bunch of magic, I wouldn't have to go through this entire little spiral here to get to all the magic nodes. I could actually have 10 magic right here, just in these 2. So always remember that. But the way that the classes work is like this right here, you'll see. This is wield class 1 staves. Also, you gain a point of magic. Every one of the class-based nodes also gives you that many points of whatever class it is and its predominant stat. So, staves will give you magic. Over here, this is class 5 staves. Gives you 5 points of magic and allows you to wield class 5 staves. And there are all kinds of things like that throughout this entire tree. So if I go back over here, I also have Class 3 sword fighters. So I can wield Class 3 swords and great swords. I can two-hand Class 3 great swords, but I can only one-hand Class 2 great swords. And great weapons work like that in this game. So any great weapon is generally one class below what class you have to one-hand it. So I'll show you that in action in just a second. But if I wanted to, you'll notice the great scissor I have equipped right now has a little red line through it. That means I can only wield it in two hands. If I try to one-hand it, it will not work very well. I would need Class 4 swords to one-hand a Class 3 greatsword, and that's just how the system works. This is all explained in this skill tree, so don't worry about that. And also the skill tree has a lot of really good lore in like every single node, which is really impressive, by the way. It's all very well written. So I am working towards... you can also use the tree to get more Estus-like items, more healing items, and energy items, which replenishes your focus, which lets you cast more spells if you're going for a spell-based build. What do I want to put points into right now? Actually, I think I do want the file sleeve. There we go. So, that's how the leveling system works. So you'll notice here that, like I said, my weapon has a red line through it. If it has two red lines through it, that means you don't have the skill to use it at all. One red line means you have to two-hand it. So if I swing it two-handed, it works just fine. If I switch to my torch, which means I'm only using it one-handed, you'll notice, yeah, there's no way I'm using it like that. Just does not work. So that's pretty much how the equipment system works, and armor works exactly like you would expect as well. Armor works in the sense that there are light and heavy variants of armor, and there's, I mean, even a gourd you can put on your head, and there are lots and lots of armors with various types of defenses that you may want to equip for varying different reasons, and lots of sets, and it all looks really cool. There are also 4 ring slots, and various kinds of rings that kind of work as you would expect, really, with, in regards to Souls-like equipment systems, and there are also these charms, which are really cool. Anytime you're wielding a weapon either two-handed or with a shield, in other words, as long as you don't have a spell implement equipped, you can put a charm on your weapon as well, and these add passive bonuses to your weapon. So I have the Shroud charm, which adds arcane damage to the attacks of my Great Scissor here, so that basically means it also does arcane, lightning, and its physical, like, slashing damage. It's pretty great. And there are all kinds of charms for all kinds of things. Attack speed, attack reach, HP leech, poison, heavy poison that also poisons you, like a dung pie kind of, all kinds of stuff. Even like a poise breaking, like, kind of like the stone ring, was it? From Dark Souls 2? Yeah, there's a lot of stuff here. There are spells, there are magic, which you equip either 2 of for a staff or 1 of with a wand. You can also wield a normal weapon with a wand, very much like a catalyst. There are incantations, which use your magic stat as well, that you equip down here, and these show up on your item bar, as you may have seen when I was playing. And there are also prayers, which work just like miracles, that you also put down here. And there are all sorts of those as well. So, yeah, a huge amount of equipment and build variety in this game. Now, I want to show you how one of the coolest parts of the game works, the actual creed and sanctuary system. So, I'm going to go to one of the sanctuaries that is actually under my creed. There are 7 of what are called creeds in the game. And a creed is kind of like a religion. There are lots of them, and they are mostly based on a deity or a belief system of some kind, and you have to be a part of one at some point. You have a choice of 3 at the beginning of the game, depending on what your dialogue choices are. But like I said, there are actually 7 of them total. The others you have to find. Let me go to... Do I not have a guide in the Mire? Oh, no, I do. Mire of Stench. This is basically Blighttown 2D, by the way. It's fun! In all capitals. And, so yeah, this is the creed that I belong to, the Keepers of Fire and Sky, which is a mage-based creed. Now, every creed has its own NPCs. The way this works is, whenever you're at a sanctuary whose creed you belong to, you can make an offering. You will find these stone idols of NPCs as loot as you go along your adventure, and you sacrifice these at one of these sanctuaries. You can have 4 at each one, and they will summon an NPC permanently to that sanctuary of that type. So in this one, for instance, I have a blacksmith, a guide, which lets you fast travel, a mage, and a leader. And these give you their services, as well as giving you, as you can see in the bottom there, a passive bonus to the entire region around that sanctuary. So as long as I'm in the Mire of Stench, I will get the bonuses of these 4 types of NPCs, and every single sanctuary has that as long as you're part of the creed that they belong to. There are items that allow you to change the creed of a sanctuary to the one that you are, and there are other ways to do it as well that are a little more violent, and also you can take the oath of whatever creed you want and change at whatever point, but that will make you sin to an apostate, basically, to the creed that you left, and you will have to pay 1,000 salt to a specific ghostly lady to make them like you again. And sometimes that means that the NPCs of that previous creed will no longer talk to you and provide their services to you, but if you're on good terms with them, they still will, oftentimes even if you're not a part of that creed anymore. So this is really cool. This is a fantastic system. Not only are each of these creeds based towards different builds, so this one is good for magic and mage and spell sword based builds. They're what are they called? The stone roots are good for dexterity builds, ranged builds. They have pistols, crossbows, bows, poison based stuff, things like that. There is the Devara creed, which is very much a paladin and cleric based creed. Heavy armor, strength weapons, and prayers. They're really cool. Not only that, every NPC has their own dialogue, depending on what creed they're from, and they sell different wares. So let me show you this. This is the upgrade system. Every weapon and piece of armor pretty much can be upgraded up to 8 times, and it will do like what you would think. And there are various kinds of upgrade materials. There's the Lock of Hair path, which goes like Lock of Hair, a Soldier's Poem, a Lord's Orders, a King's Orders, I believe. A King's Orders is basically like your Titanite Slab, a very rare high-tier upgrade material. And then there are things like the Blazing Doll, Blazing Locket, Frozen Doll, Drowned Censer. There are all kinds of upgrade materials that do different things, and different types and origins of weapons have different upgrade material paths they go through. And this does take salt as well. Now, as you can see here, I'm Devotion 4 to this creed. Every creed has a devotion. When you leave a creed, their devotion will be reset to 1, or 0, is it? I think it's 1. And the maximum is 7. So why I was doing that farming at the beginning is to show you this. So every leader, if you summon a leader to your sanctuary, you can do work. This involves... Oh, those were Ebola Eye nerves, not Heartseeker nerves. Damn it! Well, that sucks. These involve you getting different kinds of enemy remains to donate to your creed, and this will increase the actual devotion to your creed, which will make the NPCs sell more advanced goods. You'll find that oftentimes most creeds NPCs will sell the same goods for the first couple of levels, but when you get at higher levels of devotion, the more creed-specific goods they'll sell. So in this creed, you would expect that most of the stuff would be the mage will sell a lot of spells and incantations and magic-based stuff, and the blacksmith will sell some magic-based stuff as well as the merchant. And every creed has that. And also, what's really cool is there are 4 items for every creed that you can choose one of those every time you increase your devotion. And those will stay, they will replenish every time you go to a sanctuary like this. So your Estus-like healing item, the Flask of Fire, or Red Grass if you're on the Stone Roots, there are, every single creed has a different healing item, and they all heal at a different rate and are kind of used in different circumstances, which I find interesting. There's also the Magic Restoring One Bottled Sky, and again, every creed has a different one of those. And there are also various other consumables that you can choose. So, for instance, in the Stone Roots, every time you level up, you can choose this one that applies poison damage to your attacks temporarily, or the pack of 25 poison throwing knives, things like that. And those will replenish every time you go to a Stone Roots sanctuary. And you can choose one of these every time you increase your devotion. So that means you're actually getting kind of multiple, I guess, Estus-like items, even though not all of them are actually healing items. Some of them can be offensive and utility-based stuff. It's a really cool, pretty elegant system that I approve of greatly. I love the fact that every creed has its own lore-based Estus-like healing item that works a bit differently. I love the fact that... Damn. That every creed has its own devotion items that allow you to make your own build, that every creed is actually kind of relevant to different builds of character, which means that gives you even more build and character variety and even more gameplay time out of the game. So yeah, it is... Salt and Sanctuary is a pretty phenomenal game, actually. I would say that there is a... That was really stupid. A pretty ridiculously huge amount of stuff here. If you're at all interested in anything like this, please do give this a shot. If you're looking for the price, it is $18 on Steam right now. That is its actual full price. 18 bucks. That's all this game costs. Not a lot of money for the amount of gameplay you're likely going to get out of it. Because again, a lot of games of this nature... By the way, there is a message-based system just like in Souls. A lot of games of this nature, like Dark Souls, have a huge amount of replay variety because of the number of character builds and things you can make, and this is absolutely no different. There's a huge amount of stuff you can do. So $18 for this is really generous, I feel, and I've already gotten 30 hours out of it myself, and I'm just about to beat it with this character once. There is a New Game Plus system, by the way. It goes up to New Game Plus 7, I believe. And that's only on one kind of character. I plan on making like a heavily strength-based, like heavy armor, crush everything build at some point as well. So yeah, the game is pretty much phenomenal. It's not perfect, and it has its very frustrating moments for sure. Like I said, not every boss fight is created equal, like you would expect in a game like this, really. But they're really well designed, most of them, and they're very, very fun. The boss fights are pretty fantastic. I don't know, maybe I should show you one? Maybe it would be a spoiler, I don't know. It's not too much of a spoiler, really. It's the second to last boss of the game, but it's not like it's a, like, huge story spoiler or something. I don't know, maybe I'll show you. Hang on. Oh, that didn't work. And what's in here? I don't think I've actually gotten up here yet. What's in this chest? Is it a mimic? No, it's not. There are mimics, by the way. Alchemist gear. Ooh. Cool. Alright, well then, anyway, let me travel, I think. It might take me, I think it would take me too long to get down to the boss, actually, in the Crypt of Dead Gods. Anyway, this is Salt and Sanctuary, guys. It does have co-op, by the way. If you summon a stone sellsword to any one of your sanctuaries, you can actually have them, you can hire them, and they will actually be a second player that you can play local co-op with on another controller. By the way, the keyboard and mouse controls work just fine. They're very well implemented and everything. The port is also good. Pretty much everything about this is good. I'm pretty much in love with this game, actually, and they're even talking about possibly adding modding support, which I am absolutely in favor of. That would be amazing. So yeah, this is a pretty fantastic game. It is a phenomenal combination of two things, that being like Metroidvania and Soulsborne, that I am just a ridiculously unhealthy fan of. So seeing them combined like this is, it makes my heart very, very happy. Also, it rains upward here. Don't worry about it. So yeah, this has been Salt and Sanctuary, available right now on Steam for the low price, that sucked, of $18. If you are at all interested, please do check it out. And I would implore you to give it a shot, even if you aren't interested in Dark Souls or anything like that, because, like I said, this game very much stands up on its own two legs just fine. Yeah, I'm having a huge amount of fun with it, and I am very much excited to put more time and energy into the game. Oh, God! Well, shoot. And I will be playing a lot more of it come soon. Like I said, although it does have its frustrating moments, it is still, for the most part, a very I'm bad at this area, apparently, even though I've gone through it multiple times. A very satisfying game that is a very heady mixture of some of my favorite things. So, yeah. Thanks again, guys, for watching. If you like this video, please do feel free to press the like button. If you did not like it because it's, terrible, then feel free to press the dislike button. Thanks again for watching. Oh, God. And I'll see you guys next time.